Hey everybody, it's Angie and welcome to Hot and Flashy. In today's video, I wanted to give you my top tips and tricks on how to find your shade match in foundation or concealer. I've been asked to make this video so many times over the years, but lately a lot of you have asked, and so I thought, well, I guess it's time for me to weigh in on it. I gotta say, the reason I have never done it is because I find it so hard to get a shade match. And you know what? I don't think it's an us problem. I think it's a them problem, meaning the manufacturers of makeup. The shades and the tones, oh my gosh, they are so different from brand to brand. I mean, even within brands, if they make 2 or 3 different foundations, you're not going to necessarily be the same shade, and they're not going to necessarily have the same shade naming system from one foundation to the next. And I find the conventional wisdom on shade matching to just leave me a little bit like more confused, because it talks a lot about finding your undertone. And even if you figure out what you are, like I'm neutral, and I go down to the store and I look at only the neutral foundations, sometimes they skew so warm, they just don't work for me, and I have to buy a cool in a certain brand. I just find that while it does help to know your general undertone, it's not an absolute that you're going to go down and pick a light, medium, neutral, and it's going to fit you. Sometimes it's just not going to work out. While a lot of it, you know, we throw back on ourselves, why can't I find the right shade match? It's mainly because there are millions and millions and millions of skin tones on the planet, and there are a very limited number of foundation shades. So I wanted to break this up into 2 different ways of buying foundation: in-store and online. If you're online shopping, you're going to need to be more reliant on the naming convention. So you're going to need to know if you are a light skin tone, if you're a medium skin tone, or if you are a darker skin tone. But within that, there are kind of blending areas where it's like light medium or medium dark. And there are certain names that the industry uses for each of those sections. And let me give you some examples of what you might be looking for based on some of the standard naming conventions. So just to use L'Oreal True Match as an example, the palest shades have names like cream ivory, fair ivory, bone, vanilla. Then you start getting into the light mediums, names like ivory beige, nude beige, buff. Then you start getting into the true mediums, soft sable, classic tan, nut brown. Then you start getting into like the deeper shades, creme cafe, cappuccino, cocoa, spiced latte. And then you start getting into the really deep shades, hot chocolate, deep golden, milk chocolate, chocolate. They're obsessed with chocolate and coffee, and dark chocolate. So like for me, where I know that I'm a light medium, I'll generally look for something that's called beige, buff, maybe sand. And then there are also the numbers. In general, the numbers will go from the lightest shades will be the lowest numbers, and the darkest shades will be the higher numbers. So let's say there's 12 shades in the range. I would probably come in at maybe around a 4 or a 5. If there's 50 shades in the range, I'd probably be around a 20, 22, 23, something in that range, okay? So at least that could put you in the right ballpark if you've never tried anything. Also, if you know what your undertone is, warm, cool, neutral, you could go with the lettering. If it has an N, that means neutral. If it has a C, that means cool. If it has a W, that means warm. I don't want to talk too much about color theory and undertones. I actually did a video a few years ago, showed you kind of how to find your undertone. If you look at the colors of your veins in your wrist and you think that they look purple or blue, then you're probably a cool tone. If you look at the veins in your wrist and they look green to you, then you're probably a warm skin tone. And if you look at them and you have like one purple and one green, which is kind of what I have here, then you're probably a neutral tone. There's a lot of different variations on neutral. There's a lot of different variations on cool. There's a lot of different variations on warm. So it's not easy to just say, okay, I'm a light, medium, neutral, and everything light, medium, neutral will match me. If you're going to buy a brand that's available in a few different spots, I would buy it at Sephora if you're not sure what shade to get, because they have a little shade matcher. And underneath every foundation's color range, it will say, find your shade. So you click that and it brings you to a little pop-up where it asks you for the foundation name and number of one that you know matches you. So in my case, I always put in the L'Oreal True Match. They have all the drugstore foundations, they have all the foundations in their store, and it will calculate the closest match to the foundation that you tell it to. So that is a really great tool when it's working. Unfortunately, it isn't working this week for some reason, but I've used it a ton in the past. So let's take a look at this Dior foundation. This is one that I bought recently. The first thing I do when I'm looking at a new foundation is I look to see how many shades they have and what their numbering system is. So in this Dior foundation, they're numbered from 0.5 to 9. So if there's a range of 9 and I'm a light medium, I usually figure that I am a little lower than the halfway point. So that would put me at maybe like a 3.5 or a 4. So I'm going to look for something around the 3.5 number that says it's light to medium and for neutral undertones. Now I'm going to go over and look at the model that they show it on. And that is going to be way too dark for me, right? So that sends me back over to the color chart. So I'm just going to go down a little bit. This one is going to be way too warm for me. This one is going to be too cool for me and too light. 2.5N, this is a color that I actually purchased. And yeah, that looks like a good match. If I had gone by this, I probably would have thrown this one in my cart, but probably the better match for me is going to be this one here, 2N, which originally I wouldn't have looked at a 2 shade because I would have thought that it was too light for me. But with them providing these pictures, it helps so much to steer me in the right direction. When I'm ordering online, I always buy 2 shades of the foundation. Usually one will be a good match for me and I'll return the other one. But just open the one that you think is going to be your best shade match. Put that one on one side of your face. See how it looks. If that side of your face kind of matches up with the other side and it looks good, then that's your match. Great, I can return the other one. If it's not a match and I have to open them both, you know, you can return both of them even if you swatch them both. I mean, Sephora, Ulta, if you buy online, Nordstrom, they have a great return policy, so don't worry about it. I'm just saying, like, if they take it back and it's unopened, still in the package, it'll go back on the shelf. If they take it back and it's been opened and used, it's going in the garbage. So it's just a way to kind of, you know, try to conserve a little bit and not waste both products if you can avoid it. So that's the case if you have to buy something, if there's no way to try it, no way to look at it. You could go down to the store also and ask to be color matched by one of the associates. I still wouldn't buy it that day because their vision is subjective. What they see in your skin may not be what you see in your skin. They may shade match you to something that you don't like. I would ask for a sample. They can give you a nice big sample. They do it at Sephora. They do it at most of the department stores. And take the sample home. Again, put it on one side of your face. See if you like how it looks compared to the other side. If it's doing the things you want it to do. If it's covering the things you want it to cover. If it's not looking too ashy, too pale, too warm. And if you like it, then I would go back and buy it or buy it online. It's easier to go and actually see the foundation, see the concealer, see what color it is, and if it's going to match you. Now, I know what a lot of people will tell you to do is to go down there with no makeup and, you know, swatch it over here, you know, swatch it in different places. I don't think you can tell if it's going to match you just from swatching it on your face. I do that all the time, and I'm still like, put it on, and it still doesn't work. So my tip is to find the makeup that you have already in your stash that you think is the best match for you. The one that you put it on and in every light, you think it looks good. I think everyone has one or everyone has something close. My hands down best match of all time is L'Oreal True Match in the shade N3. And I have it on right now and I think it is a really good shade match for my skin. So you're gonna take this and you're gonna put a big swatch of it right on your arm, leaving lots of room for swatching other things. No matter what, you have to wait for this to dry before you go down to the store. And I also recommend that when you're at the store and you swatch things next to it, that you wait for them to dry too. So I'm gonna go ahead and do foundation on this arm. And then for concealer, I'm basically gonna do the same thing. My favorite concealer, the one that I think is a perfect match for me, is the Lancome Tint Idole. And I wear this in the shade Buff N. And I'm gonna swatch that one on my arm, and I want it to be kind of the opaque color. I don't want to blend it in. I want a nice opaque swatch of each, okay? So I'm gonna let that dry, and then we're gonna go to the store together, and I'm gonna show you how I take the colors and I put them on here until one matches that one as closely as possible. That's the one I go with. Going to the store with swatches on you that you can compare the colors to is going to be the easiest and the most foolproof way to get yourself a shade match. You know, you might have to scrounge through your makeup to find something, but I bet you have something in there that you could use that will get you at least close enough and in the ballpark. Hi there, future me. Just wanted to break in here to say that instead of swatching up your arms to go do this, because I ended up having a foundation accident and got makeup on my sleeve. When I picked my arm up like this, I bumped myself in the sleeve. Managed to get the stain out, but just barely. Makeup really leaves a stain. Another alternative to swatching your arms up if you are going to be wearing long sleeves that day is just to do it on a piece of white paper. So here's basically the same experiment, except you get a lot bigger swatches, you can see it a lot better, you can see it against white. The other good thing about the paper is you can write on it, so you can write which ones they are, because I had a heck of a time forgetting which was which, and I had to keep referring back to the footage, which if you weren't doing that, you would definitely forget. So bring a pen and a piece of paper, and you can just do it this way. It's so much easier, and then you can really get a good idea. You can wait for them to dry down. So this top swatch here is the L'Oreal True Match in N3, but you can see that they're all very close. They're probably all very wearable, but this is the best match for me. And then on the concealer, this is my Lancome concealer, and these are 3 of the Sephora Best Skin Ever concealers. So that would be probably a better way to do it than swatching up your arms and going. All right, so I ended up with 22p in Best Skin Ever and 13p in the Best Skin Ever concealer. So I want to go ahead and put these on and show you how they look. Then we'll continue on with how to select the right color when you can't test them and you can't swatch them on your arm. So let me go ahead and apply this. We'll just do it really quickly here. All right, I think this is a pretty good match because I can't really see a big difference between this side of my face and this side of my face. The only thing I would say is maybe it's slightly light, but I think it's going to oxidize because when I looked at the arm swatch, it started off way lighter and then it did oxidize to more of a color for me. And I feel like as it dries, it's going to oxidize and darken up a bit. So that is why you need to let your swatches dry before you decide which shade you're going to get. So I would have never guessed that I would take a cooler shade in this foundation because it has so many neutral shades, but the neutral shades in this foundation do run a little bit warm. Now let's give the concealer a try. This is in 13p. And of course, another way to shade match is to find an influencer who has basically your same skin tone and just buy the shades that they buy. Go ahead and pop a little bit of this on. That looks like it's going to be good. All right, but I think that looks good. I think it's a little bit lighter and brighter than my usual concealer. You can see how that lightens and brightens, but it's not completely white. All right, so rest of my makeup is done, and you can see that I got a really good shade match with both of those, so I'm really happy with those. Now, what about when you're going to a store that doesn't have testers? So this would really only pertain to drugstore foundations. So I would take whatever foundation you know you have a match in. I would just take it with me and just compare it to different shades in the store. The difference is that just looking at it through the bottle, you can't see what it looks like after it dries and oxidizes. I shot this in an Ulta, but let's pretend we're in a Walgreens or a CVS. Sometimes the lighting by the displays can be a little bit funky, so definitely take your foundation, carry it over to a window if you can, and look at it in natural light. All right, I am back from that excellent adventure, so let's see how we did. So here is the foundation shade that I am trying to match. And here's the e.l.f. shade, or one of the 2 e.l.f. shades. I feel like this one is going to be the better match for me. This one is 210 Bisque. This one is 210 Bisque, and this one is 220 Beige. And I think that the 210 Bisque is going to be the better match for me. All right, so that is everything for today's video. I hope you found it helpful and informative. If you did, give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. As always, I thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your watching. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.